Well, hi, and thanks for stopping by the Pellets and Pistons Airgun channel. You can probably tell that it's not exactly the ideal weather to be outside today. We've been having rain for a couple of days straight, so we're going to work indoors today. We're going to work on the HW95 custom left-handed stock that Mark Myers donated to the channel. We're going to continue with that project, so that ought to be fun. But before we do, I don't know if you can hear the background noise, but there's a lot of noise in the background, like a constant hiss. We've had 2 full days of rain, and last night we got over 2 inches of rain all in one evening. And so the little trout stream in the back of my property, which is my back boundary, which usually runs at a normal pace, it's usually a pretty calm little brook, is now a raging torrent because of all the rain. And I thought maybe you folks would get a kick out of checking it out before we get started indoors. So we're going to take a quick walk down by the brook, and then we'll go inside and we'll get busy on that custom 95 stock. So stick around, it's ought to be fun, and thanks again for stopping by the Pellets and Pistons Airgun channel. Okay, so this is a little trail that I made when I first bought the property here, and I built the trail, or made the trail I should say, to take me down close to the brook, where I kind of carved out a little campsite where my wife and I like to hang out sometimes when it's warm out. We'll come down here and enjoy the weather. You can probably hear that brook now. But yeah, this is my little spot. Now if you look up ahead, this is my archery range. I used to be big into archery, however, due to my aging shoulders and a couple of shoulder injuries, which were probably due to archery, I no longer do that. I have a crossbow now that I hunt with. I don't use my compound bow anymore. But here we are, we're at the brook, and I don't know if you can hear that water raging, but it certainly is. So this is our little spot where we like to hang out. And you can just hear that water screaming. And that, my friends, is my little trout brook. Overflowing. I mean, it's up on the banks pretty high. There's a steep drop-off right at the edge of that water, and the water's up and over the drop-off, which is quite unusual. It's usually not this high. So anyway, we're going to head inside and get busy on that 95 stock. I just thought maybe you guys would get a kick out of it. Okay, so we're at the bench with the HW95 left-hand custom stock, and where we left off last time is we had put 2 coats of hand-rubbed true oil finish on the stock. We put it on real heavy. We weren't really worried about fingerprints or anything else, because the step that we're going to do today is going to begin the process of eliminating all of that, and also filling the grain. I don't know if you can see here, but there's a lot of grain showing through on the stock, and that kind of makes it look like an amateur's job, and we certainly don't want that. So here's this may or may not be a secret to you. I call it a secret. If you're already aware of how to do this, then by all means fast forward to the end of the video series, I guess. But for those of you who have limited experience finishing walnut, in this case, as long as we don't have a stain on the wood, as long as we're leaving the wood in a natural color, we can do this next step. And this is basically wet sanding the stock using the oil finish that we got right here. I just wound up my 400 grit paper, but it's giving me a hard time. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to essentially sand. I'm going to probably start at do half of the stock right now, and then once it's dry, I'll do the other half of the stock, and that way I've got something I can hold on to while I work at the other end of the stock. So we'll start at the butt end, because that one's that's got more contours and more shapes that we have to contend with. And what I'm going to do is roll this 400 grit wet or dry paper around this little rubber eraser. I like using these rubber erasers. I found that they work pretty well. I'm going to apply a little bit of the oil onto the stock, not too much, and then I'm going to take that eraser, I'm going to that 400 grit paper, I'm going to dab it to make sure that it's all covered. And then I'm just going to start sanding with the grain. And basically I want to create a mud of sawdust between the oil and the sawdust that I'm sanding out of that wood right now. So what's happening is I'm creating this kind of thick, muddy, oily liquid. And then once I get to the point where I feel like I've made some progress, I want to hear that paper cutting. Here we go. This is better. I had to expose a new surface here. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm just sanding this area. I'll get up underneath this curl on the top of the stock, just like that. And we're going to sand until it starts to get kind of sticky. Once it starts to tack up a little bit, which it's doing right now, I can feel the paper dragging on the wood as we sand. I'm going to tear off a section, expose a new piece, put a little bit of oil on that, and then we'll go back to work. Okay, so I can feel the sandpaper dragging now through the mud that we created. And it's getting kind of sticky. We're just working in this one area. We're going to use this technique, of course, on the entire stock as we go along in the process. And this is just the first time we're going to do this. This is going to help to fill the grain, but it's certainly not going to fill it all in one shot. So this is a process that you repeat over and over and over again until the grain is filled and you're satisfied with the way the finished product is looking. And from there, we'll do the finish coats, which of course don't get sanded in. Those just get hand rubbed onto the wood. Alright, so now what I've got is a sticky mess of oil and sawdust. Alright, and now I'm going to take the palm of my hand and I'm going to smear it all around in the stock. I don't care if I'm smearing with the grain. In fact, smearing across the grain is probably not a bad idea at this point. Alright. So, and you can actually see where the grain has been filled a little bit. If you look closely, I think you could probably see that. Alright. So again, I'm not too worried about how I leave this because I'm going to sand it again once it's dry. I'm going to flip this over now and we're going to get to work on the opposite side. Do that for a minute. Get a fresh piece of paper. So obviously the reason I mentioned that it's really not feasible to do this on a stained stock is because you'd end up sanding that stain right back off again. So this is only good when you're going to leave the wood natural. For a stained stock, there's spray-on applications which are probably a little better suited, or you can simply just wipe on this kind of true oil. You'll still have the pores in the wood, but there are pore fillers that you can buy as well. So if you do stain a stock, you can still get a very nice looking finish on it. You just can't really use this technique. So I'm sanding the cheek piece right now, trying to keep those edges crisp. I'll come all the way up to the top where it rolls over. And I'm just making that mud, sanding with the grain. Let's turn that paper around, fresh end. It is 400 grit, so it does tend to clog pretty quickly. So you do have to keep exposing fresh sandpaper. All right. A little more oil. And we'll start working on around the curl of that cheek piece. Again, we have to be very careful for that line, that very fine double step line where cheek piece rolls around, we don't want to take that crisp edge off that line. We want to try to keep that if at all possible. So we have to be real careful working around that area. Alright, we're getting some mud going here. Probably not holding that in front of the camera for you. I'm trying to get the best leverage I can get. Alright, now I'm going to take a little more oil. I'm going to put it on the very edge of the paper. A little more. There we go. Alright, I'm going to go right inside this radius here. I'll try to smooth out some of the old finish in there and create that same mud that we want. Looking good. Rolling around the back of the stock now. Alright, we're getting there. So you get the idea, right? Let's fill in the pores, hand rubbed oil finish. But the best part about a hand rubbed oil finish, in my opinion, like this, is that if it ever gets scratched or dinged, it can be repaired very simply by using this very technique. You sand out your scratch or your ding, blend it into the rest of the stock, and then you just kind of sand in some oil and then finish up with some hand rubbed coats over that area. And you'll end up with a job that you could hardly tell was ever damaged if you take your time and do it right. So, all right. Okay, I think we got the thickness that we're looking for, that sticky, tacky feeling. And once I get that, I'm just going to smear it all around again. Get it all into those little corners. Up in the back over here, where the rollover is. Alright, now I'm going to set this aside and let it dry. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to do the pistol grip area. And then we'll set it aside again, let it dry again. And then we'll do the forend. And then we'll come back on succeeding days, and I'm going to repeat this process. So I probably won't bring you through the entire process. This is going to just get repeated time and time again until I'm satisfied that the grain is filled to my satisfaction. And then we're going to go ahead and put some hand rubbed coats. We'll show you how to do that as well, because that's basically the next operation after we finish with this wet sanding process. Okay, so when we left off last time, I gave you a little bit of misinformation. I told you what I was going to do is do several coats of sanded in finish, and then when the pours were finished enough to my satisfaction, that we were going to move on to the final finish. However, I forgot to talk about an important step. What we've been doing so far is sanding it out and then rubbing that mud in with our hands. Now this is I've done that 3 times since the last segment that you just watched, and now it's time to start to do a little bit different method. We're still going to be sanding the wood, we're still going to be using true oil, but instead of rubbing it in with my hands, I'm going to be rubbing it off with a paper towel, and that is going to change the way the stock looks as far as the gloss that you see right now, but it also starts to fill the grain even more, and so from here on, that's going to be the technique until I get satisfied. I'm going to sand the stock, wipe the area off with a paper towel, move on and do a new section, and we're going to do it like that. So I'm going to just I'll go over a little bit how to do that, and then we'll move on to the final finish, and then from there I'm undecided, but I think we might do a little checkering on the pistol grip of this gun. I'm having thoughts about putting some on the bottom, but I want to rest it on a bag, and I'm thinking it might be better if it's smooth. That way it can recoil without any interference. So yeah, I'm kind of undecided how we're going to do that at this point, whether or not I'll be checkering under here, or even if I want to get into checkering the grip. I'm decent at checkering. I'm not the world's best. I do tend to make mistakes when I do it. So, but it does really dress up a stock, and it performs a function as well. So I'm on the fence. We'll see if we're going to do that or not. All right, so now we're going to begin the process of, again, wet sanding with the True Oil. And then instead of wiping it into the stock with my hands, I'm going to wipe it off before it tacks up too much. If one of the things about using these paper towels, if the stock is too tacky, like we're trying to get when we rub it in with our hands, then the paper towel tends to leave lint behind. So we don't want to do that either. So you're going to just pay attention to how tacky it is. And when you think it's about time to wipe it off, you're probably right. Alright, so let's get that spread around a little bit. Alright, well, I'm going to call that ready to get wiped down. Mainly because my sandpaper just hit the cellar floor here and my workshop floor, and I'm sure it's not looking too good as far as cleanliness goes. Alright, so let's wipe this off, and you'll see that the stock grain has really begun to show through, and yeah, it's as far as the color goes, but more importantly, you can also see that the grain is beginning to be filled. I'll hold it up to the camera a little better for you. I'll give you a comparison. There's still a ways to go. You may not be able to see it in the camera. I'll get up, I'll come around so I can see what I'm showing you. Alright, so if we hold that in the light just right, you'll see that obviously it's not perfect yet because we kind of smeared it around and so forth. It's drying in spots right now, so you're seeing it showing kind of blotchy. But what you need to pay attention to, or you should be paying attention to, is the grain of the wood itself. If you notice, it's getting harder and harder to see those pores. Now if I tip it over to the other side, and we got a little oil on here I got to take care of. But this side we haven't sanded yet. I don't know if you can see that in different lights, but the pores are not full, or filled I should say, as well as they are on this other side. And this isn't ready yet either. We still have a ways to go here. Alright, so I'm going to do this opposite side of the rifle butt now, after I pick up that sandpaper that I dropped on the floor. It's plenty. And we'll replace that. Just kind of spread this around before we start sanding. It's fun. I like to think about things like, I've built a couple of rifle stocks for muzzle loaders in the past, and they're going to outlive me. When I'm gone, my work will still be there for other folks to hopefully enjoy, and hand down to my children. God knows where they'll end up from there, you know. All right, you can see that takes on like a satin type of look once that you've wiped it off with a paper towel, and get what's wrapped around the stock over here. So it's really starting to look pretty now. It really is. All right. And that is what we're going to be continuing to do now for several more times, the whole stock. So far all we've done is the butt stock. We're going to continue and go through the pistol grip up through the forend. The complete stock will use this same process, and then we're going to repeat this several times until that grain looks like it's filled 100%, and right now it's very close. All right, so that's how you do that, and we'll be back once I've gotten the grain filled and it's time to put the final finish on, and we'll show you how that's done, and then we'll be done with the finishing process, and then I'll be debating whether or not to continue on and checker this stock, which is looking more and more like something I want to do. All right. Okay, so where we left off just a few seconds ago for you, but a few days ago for me, we were sanding in some true oil and then wiping it off before it got too tacky with some paper towels. I've repeated that process over the last several days, several times, probably 6 or 7 times, and I've gotten the pores of the wood to the point where I'm satisfied. They're not 100% filled, but for the most part, they look really good, and I'll show you what I mean. This is where we're at right now. Again, no actual gloss finish has been added yet. This is what it looked like after it's been sanded and then simply wiped off with a paper towel. So if you can see, as I hold it in the light, when you look across the grain, it looks pretty darn smooth. There's not too much open grain showing anymore. The forend has a little bit more. Let's see if I can get you better focus here. There we go. A little bit more grain showing, but not too much. Still looks pretty darn good. So what I think I'm going to do today, even though we may not be done sanding the oil into the finish, I'm going to go ahead and rub just one coat onto the stock without sanding, without doing any sort of finish on it. Not finish, but any sort of wiping off. I'm just going to wipe the finish on by hand. This is the way we're going to be doing the final coats when we're at that point. Today I want to just do a single coat just so I can get a look at how it looks with a gloss finish on it, and then I'll decide if I want to do any more wet sanding. So let's get started on that. Now this is where it gets a little tricky, because if you touch an area where you've already wiped the oil in, you're naturally going to leave a fingerprint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do half the stock now, and then we'll come back a little later and we'll do the other half once this side is dry. And that way I'll have something dry to hold on to while I work the rest of the stock. Alright, a little bit on our hands. I think I'll start on the tough side, the one with all the little curves and corners that we have to get into. We'll get this done first. And again, I'm just rubbing this oil in now. And the idea here is when it starts to feel the least bit sticky, you're done. Don't continue rubbing it in at all. You just want to get this on so it's just beginning to tack up. Now I'm paying close attention to this little corner right here. I want to make sure I don't put too much oil in there, because like I said, that'll pool up and that'll make for an unsightly look when the gun is finished. Something we'd have to actually sand back out of that stock. Alright, I need just a tiny bit more. We'll stop right at where the trigger grip rolls into the forend here. Alright, so again, the idea is not so thick that it's going to run, and not so tacky that it's going to leave fingerprints. Yeah, looking very good. Again, I want to pay attention to this little corner where the bottom line of that cheek breast goes. Okay, I think we're all set here. Now we're just going to set it aside and let it dry. And then we'll come back and we'll do the forend in a little while. Alright, so that's that. So this doesn't mean that we're in the finishing stages. I just want to get a look at how this looks once it's dry to a shine with the true oil unwiped off. And then once I can get a good look at that, I'll give you a good look at that, and then we'll decide whether or not we're ready to put the final coats on. Alright, so stick around, we'll be right back. Okay, so it's been several hours since we rubbed the finish into the stock. And this was just a hand rub finish where we did not wipe it with a paper towel. So this time we left it to dry to a gloss, and that gives us a good look, and we can tell a little better how well we filled those pores and whether or not we're satisfied with how it looks. So let's take it up to the camera and we'll take a good look at it. I don't know how well you'll be able to see, but This is the gloss finish, right? As opposed to the dull finish up here. It's looking pretty good, but if you turn it in the light, I think you can probably see right in this area, all the way up through here, you can still see those pores through the finish. I also up in here, if you can see that little shiny mark that doesn't look like everything else, that's a little bit of a run that needs to be sanded out. But anyway, we got a good look at where we're at right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do the forend with a gloss finish again, just a hand rubbed oil finish. I'm going to let it sit for several more hours, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to sand it all down again. I'm going to start all over again and get some more of that grain filled up. All right, so that's where we're at. And so I'm going to start on wet sanding, not wet sanding, but hand rubbing this in. And if you want to stick around and check that out, we'll do it right now. So yeah, we're getting real close to the finish line here, folks. Alright, so we're going to put this away, let it dry, get my fingerprints off everything. And then we'll come back and wet sand that again. Alright, I'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, so where we left off, we had went ahead and put a clear hand rubbed finish over the wood that we'd already been sanding down and wiping off with paper towels, just to see how well we filled the grain. And it turns out the grain is still a little bit unfilled, not quite enough to my satisfaction. I don't expect it to be 100%, but I do expect it to be a little better than this. So we're going to go ahead and do some more wet sanding, and we're going to wipe it off with a paper towel like we had in the past, and we're going to try to fill in these pores just a little bit more. So we'll start again on the tough side here. We got our 400 grit wet or dry paper. It's about time to do that right now. So again, the idea here is wipe only long enough to get the bulk of the material off the stock. You don't want to get it to the point where a paper towel starts to drag through the finish and leave us with streaks and clumps of finish that we didn't catch. Again, very carefully around that edge back there, where that cheek piece wraps around. Alright, and that's that. We'll do the other side, and then we'll come back later on and we'll do the pistol grip, and then we'll move to the forend again, just like we've been doing right along. Expose some more paper. Dab there. And if you remember right, there was a blemish up underneath the curl on this side of the stock. We're going to try to get that sanded out as well. It was just a little bit of a deposit of finish that kind of ran. So we want to knock that back down if we can. So we got a good look at it with the finish on both yesterday and today. Decided that the pores needed a little more work, and so that's what they got this morning. I got to go off to work today, and when I get home it'll be plenty dry enough to move on and do another section of the stock. And there we go. It's looking so nice. We're almost to the point where I'm going to be satisfied. Once this has a gloss finish on it, again, that'll show all the little imperfections. But if you can take that gloss down from a high gloss to a satin gloss, It'll hide a multitude of issues. Oh, I see some more stuff on this side we got to take care of. So right up in this curl here, there's a little bit of a not an overrun, but a run. I want to try to get that out of there if I can. Right up in here. That's better. Looks like it's going. So this is the time to do these little imperfections when you find them. Is while you're sanding the finish in. You don't want to find them after you've started applying those final coats, because they'll just compound. As you add another coat, it'll just make that error stand out more and more and more. Okay, I'd say that's pretty good. So we're going to put this down for the day, and I'll see you after work tonight, and we'll move on to the grip section. Okay, so we're back at the bench, and we've half sanded. We sanded the butt and the grip area back down again, smeared that mud around with the paper towel, got it in the pores a little bit better, and now it's time to do the same on the fore end. Now that this end is dry and I can handle the stock a little better without making fingerprints all over it, that was the reason that there's a cut between these segments. So now I'm going to sand the whole fore end down. Same thing with the paper towels, and we're probably going to repeat this several times until we see that grain fill even more. Because if I hold it up to the light, you should be able to see. It is kind of hard to see in the camera. I'm looking with you guys through the. There it is. You can see right here where the gloss is, or where the light is reflecting, how the grain still shows through. So we got to do a little more work with that. I won't be satisfied with that, because that's going to show through even once the stock is finished. You'll still see it. So we're going to work on that. We got to work on a run that came out of the screw hole. I think it was on this side. No, maybe it's on the other side. Yeah, here it is. Look at that run. You can see it all the way down there. So that's got to get sanded out. So we've got some work ahead of us, and we're going to get started on it right now. So here we go. As I look at this stock, I can see that it's going to need at least another once over. I don't plan on being in a rush. It's going to take as long as it takes. But we're almost there. I know I keep saying that, but the hard part's all done. The stock is inletted. Recoil pad's been installed. We installed that grip cap. That was all touchy stuff. And now it's just a matter of putting on the finishing touches. And then we're all set. Then we can go to work on the rifle itself. We're going to do a full tune on the HW95. That's a 22 caliber gun. And we're going to go crazy on it. We're going to button the piston and burnish this the receiver tube. We're going to install a new Macari tune kit, high output kit.
We're gonna make this into a real sweet.
Okay, so that's it for today on the custom HW95 left-handed stock, and we'll pick up where we left off next time. For now, I'd like to thank you folks for stopping by the Pellets and Pistons Airgun channel. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that. Hit the bell if you'd like to be reminded of future videos, and by all means, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this one. Thanks again, folks. Have a great day.